we're in very unpredictable times. And so that makes me have to think more, be creative, because when we started looking at recruiters, I spent more time breaking bad habits than just focusing on what they actually could bring to the table. You go to the career page and it's all of these people just having fun. That's not, they're trying to show work. It's just people playing Frisbee.
Welcome to The Growth Switch, the podcast where we dive into the strategies, struggles, and breakthroughs of bold business leaders. I'm your host, Jules Fox, the growth strategist and lead content creator at Aries Media. I'm here to uncover how today's top brands are scaling, overcoming challenges, and unlocking sustainable success. Now, for those of you just tuning in, Aries Media helps grow successful brands like yours with comprehensive hands-on support for sales, business development, and performance marketing. Go ahead and drop growth into the comments if you want to learn how to do that. Now, today we are fortunate enough to have Kate Morgan on the podcast. She's the founder of Boston Human Capital Partners, and she's a people strategy expert who helps early stage startups scale intentionally by treating hiring, culture, and human systems as core growth infrastructure. And later on, we're going to hear about her new book that's coming out soon. Kate, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Now, tell me a little bit more about the company, Boston Human Capital Partners. So what was the idea behind it? What was the market fit? How did this come about?
Absolutely. It's interesting because I founded the company in 2011. And, 2011, it was on the heels of the recession, and the job market actually didn't come back until 2014. But by then, we were deep in the throes of moving the company forward. I think by then I was already over 2 million. And even with a downed economy, that became sort of the impetus for us moving forward and evolving our services to today.
Yeah, it's interesting. Companies that have been around a long time, like yours, you've been through a lot. You've been through market recessions. You've been through the hard times, and you're still around. So what keeps you ticking? Like, what keeps it going?
Oh, so it's funny. Maybe I'm a masochist, but I actually love this. When stuff gets hard, like I look at myself, there's business owners and then there's entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs, I think there's like a level of creativeness that you need. And business owners that kind of like to have keep the status quo, keep things very predictable. We're in very unpredictable times. And so that makes me have to think more, be creative, be on my tiptoes here to make sure that I'm reacting swiftly. There's a gentleman who I follow, Greg Crabtree, who wrote Simple Numbers. And I think he said this a couple of years ago, where we're in a street fight for competition. We can out execute our competitors. If we do that, then we'll be so much better on the other side of this.
Yeah. And if you show up and if you love what you do, especially when that's like creative problem solving and overcoming those challenges, I mean, that is a great way to succeed,
Absolutely.
You've spent 20 years helping founders to get their people strategy right. So especially that this is more popular these days. Everybody wants to be a founder. Everybody wants the new big company. What's the most common mistake that these early stage startups are making when they're trying to do their hiring?
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds self-fulfilling, but honestly, it's your people strategy. So your company's greatest asset is its people. And time again, founders, they really cut their noses off in spite of their face. They go under a lot of assumptions on how they should scale their company. But at the end of the day, it's 100% based on your people and your people strategy. Everything from comp, how you attract or repel the people you don't want, how to manage them. Business is easy. It's the people that make it hard.
That's quotable. Business is easy. It's the people that make it hard. All right. Now, the reason that a person might want to work with you, might want to hire your company is because hopefully you can flip that equation, right? Hopefully you can make that a little bit easier for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because again, just to be a founder in itself, that's takes a lot of gumption. So when you're looking forward and you're looking at your own strategy, it's hard to start to think about how the people are going to impact your execution. And it's so funny. So this is another big Kateism. What do people always say? They stole my idea. However, nobody says they stole my execution, but we know it's actually the execution that makes people stronger, that their companies that much more valuable. So when we sit down with our clients, we're really looking at, hey, it's not putting a body in a seat. It's about understanding what are your core values. Your core values end up, if you do them right, it becomes, and you can distill it down to an edict: hire, fire, and manage to those core values, then you develop your company's ethos. So that's why we're here, just to make sure that everybody is adhering to those core values, because those are the things. It's not about ticking the box of, did they do this? Do they do that? It's how will they move your company forward?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people do think in terms of, hey, I have a problem and I need somebody to come in and help solve that problem once they've experienced it. But especially with a founder and coming up with these new companies, it might be more beneficial to look into the future and say, I can see that we're going to experience a problem, and here's who we need to help us solve that problem. So do you help people proactively get the right person in the seat even before they need it? Help them along their timeline?
Yeah. So when we go in, so it's usually a company is starting to think about how they're going to do their hiring. And we even look at it from the perspective of, I hate job descriptions. The way job descriptions are written today, they're ridiculous. They're just a checklist of problems that that company is facing today. We want to understand, what does success look like when that person gets hired and 12 months out? So rather than taking that job description, that snapshot of time, we want to know, all right, how will you hire the best person for this? This is what success will look like. And that's what we're really focused on. And then we can call it, reverse engineer it, if you will, because we can see where they're at today and where they want to go. And that's how we start to interview. So we don't work on commission. That's a really critical point that I should mention. Most recruiters are really coin operated. They're driven by commission, where the work we do is really about making sure, and I tell my team, look for the caveat. Every person can't be great, right? I mean, Jules, you and I are great. Let's just be honest. We're perfect, right? But when we start looking at individuals, candidates, we want to see where they're not quite are. And the only way we can do that is if my team is really drilling down. And when they're interviewing people, it's not looking at that checklist. Do they have this skill set? It's understanding what their motivators are, who they are, and what they've accomplished. And we want to make sure that we're tracking to that. But any concerns, we're trying to find them as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that sounds a lot like, when you're talking about how people build their culture versus just how they hire warm bodies, right? And if their culture is performative versus functional, because I know that you speak a lot about that. So tell me more about that. Like, I feel like that piggybacks onto what you were just saying.
Oh, and I love that you just mentioned that, because I was just looking at a career page for a company today. Mm-hmm. And you go to the career page and it's all of these people just having fun. That's not, they're trying to show work. It's just people playing Frisbee. That's not work. Yet we know, unless you're, maybe fresh college grad or whatever, you want to have purpose in your life. You want to know what that looks like. And that's where I think, particularly 2020 to 2022, we had this like real influx of make everything look fun, make work not work like. And I think we got into this very strange narrative of work-life balance. And I was coaching an accelerator, and as the Southerners say, bless her heart, she had as one of her core values, work-life balance. Mm-hmm. That's sure, it's great for marketing to attract somebody, I guess. But then when the rubber met the road, she needed a deliverable. And this woman tapped out at 3:00. And she thought, oh, okay, well, the woman has to go pick up her kid. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that evening she would get back online and finish it. Didn't happen. Why? Well, work-life balance. And that's when we start to talk about core values. Core values shouldn't be these aspirational things or things gimmicky to attract people. You want your core values to, again, retract and repel the people you don't want. And so and really structure it, because otherwise, if you don't have those core values, you're really talking about you're going to scale chaos, because culture is going to happen regardless. But you're going to have these little hiccups along the way when you get sort of smitten with somebody's skill set, but they don't really actually map to your core values and your culture.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. And it brings up a good point. If I wanted to play Frisbee, right, I could do that on the weekend with my family, and that is my work-life balance. But a really good employee, the right fit, the right culture fit, the right performance fit is should be coming in and loving their job.
Yes.
When I go to work, I like working. I don't want to play frisbee at work. I want to get my work done and I want to build something and I want to push the company forward because that's what I enjoy doing. Right.
Yes. And I think that's an intrinsic thing for most people. I think if there's any, when people maybe deviate a little from that, it could be anxiety based. Can they really do something? Can they really push the envelope? Because I work and focus on earlier stage companies, it's imperative that everybody's coming to the table looking for their purpose. And then it's just making sure that the company has developed a purpose for them and one that they can get a little outside of the comfort zone, but also feel really good when they win.
Yeah. And I think that anxiety is a good point, is that it's almost like we are supposed to come into work and do our jobs and be good at our jobs and also smile while doing it and enjoy and be having fun. And if you're not having fun, you're not doing your job right, And I think that's hard. I think that, yeah, for a lot of people, they might want to actually just, come in and be there and be present and help grow the company and do their job. And yeah. Okay. So how do you personally grow your company? You find people for other companies professionally. So how do you find the right fit for your company so you guys can grow?
Absolutely. So we practice what we preach. And so I think we started 7 years ago
Mm-hmm.
with developing our core values. And that was really fascinating because honestly, I prior to that, I wasn't all that on board with the core values just because I saw them so poorly executed. And what I found though, when recruiting for my own team is I didn't want people with recruiting experience previously because when we started looking at recruiters, I spent more time breaking bad habits than just focusing on what they actually could bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
what I ended up, those core values, we really mapped them out against those who had been successful at my organization. And then we pulled them in. And now, because it's become my company ethos, every
Mm-hmm.
single person on my team, they can recite the core values, and they also will call out when somebody on the team really respects or is expressing a particular core value, whether it's in their workflow or just intrinsically that they're bringing to the table. And that only helps reinforce our culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you get, and even from my company, this is how I had to scale. I can't scale if I can't promise a certain type of person that's going to go in because it's a professional services company. So everybody has to be operating at the same capacity in the same sort of manner. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to confuse this with needing to have a very specific personality type. Like we're not drones, we're not robots. It's kind of the equivalent of, listen, Jules, you appear to be closer to my age. So I'm going to assume that you learned cursive writing still when you were a kid, right?
Yeah.
And I know that's going by the wayside, but I use this analogy because we trained kids to write in cursive. But
Mm-hmm.
we also know that now we have forensic handwriting specialists that can decipher somebody's penmanship. It's still going to look the same, but it's not identical. And so when I think of my company culture and how I'm scaling, it's all about making sure that every person can operate at that same level of capacity. They're going to connect that well with each client, regardless of the situation. It just makes things so much easier. But again, they can have their a little bit of their own spin. Like I love the type of humor each one brings to the table.
Yeah. And it sounds like, and let me know if I'm way off base here, a lot of companies talk about cross training, and as a functional aspect of the job, how to do this, also do this. It sounds like what you're talking about is cross training as far as values and company culture. Is that accurate?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're making sure that they have all of those core values when they come to the table.
Yeah.
But from the cross training, we actually I can address that on almost another way because we also don't specialize because we do just inherently come at clients with a very different perspective. People don't take jobs, they take companies. So
Mm-hmm.
we need to understand the company in great detail.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to a founder who they found their product market fit, but they suddenly realized that their hiring playbook no longer works as they're scaling? So
Mhm.
what was working for them before simply is not working for them now as they are suddenly going up.
Yeah, well, it happens so much because, again, they haven't really figured out what they needed for their culture. And so that's, you got to throw the brakes on, to take a step back. There's so many different operating systems that you can leverage. Scaling up, EOS, all of these things, all of them end up having a bit of a component around people. And
Mhm.
so, and again, if you can take the moment and take a deep breath and say, all right, let's look at what is working, what's not working, and then start to document it. You can't do, and I think people forget that you can document your people strategy. It's not about, hey, this seems like a good fit, because we also know that after 6 months, the honeymoon's over and the personalities really start to come out. And so we want to walk it back and say, okay, we can't have that. So if we're really screening people at the upfront for those core values, and again, those core values, you have to be able to say, if you don't do this, you'll be fired. Now, that sounds super extreme, but that's the intensity and the intention you need to come to the table with those core values.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. So it sounds like you're a bit industry agnostic as far as who your ideal client is. If you were to 5, 10x your company over the next few years, what's the biggest roadblock that's holding you back, holding your growth back, that you would just destroy if you could?
Unpredictable market. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge, because we are industry agnostic. So when I first launched in 2011, 100% of our clients were software.
Mhm.
Through the years, we get pulled into, I mean, we did a bunch of work for a shipping and dredging company. We have landscaper clients. At the end of the day, it really does boil down to what we can do to help those particular industries. So always it's got to be about your marketing. It's got to be about extending and making sure you're bringing on, not in a service based company, and even for a product based, you got to know who your ICP is. So your ideal customer profile, because if you start to deviate and you're just taking the money for money's sake, it's going to dilute your value. And you always have to be increasing your value, as opposed to, because otherwise, what are you? I just had a conversation with a person who has their startup. Their
Mhm.
startup is comprised of only 1099 employees. There's no value in that company. Zero value, because if that founder gets hit by a bus, there's no playbook, there's no anything that would create a reason to exit. So
Yeah.
that's why I really look at, come out with your playbook, which I came out with mine. It's a 50-page playbook that I brought to fruition, I think the first year that I launched.
Mhm.
You got to have that, and you got to
Yeah.
stick to it. You got to, and then make sure that you're getting your marketing, you're getting the sales, and you're doing sales and marketing right. Not, and we're seeing such an influx of AI, it's not going to do it. It's
Yeah.
not, I think it's just, you're going to be another AI bot that's going to go into my spam filter.
Well, you can't necessarily outsource your personality to AI, and I think a lot of your personality is going to come into this company playbook. Yeah.
Yes, 100%, 100%. And even how you go to market. You and I were chatting a little bit before.
Mhm.
Money was really easy from 2018 to money
Mhm.
was just so easy. You could get customers. My background, I was at HubSpot as a contract recruiter years ago, and
Mhm.
they brought this whole idea of just put content out and people will start beating a path to your door. Well, not anymore. Everybody took that same page, and now we need to start to dial it back. Like I keep telling people, don't give me a book to read that was published in that time period about growing and scaling, because everything was easy then. Give me a book that was written in 2020 or 20, excuse me, 2000 to 2002,
Mhm.
or during the recession, because they're the ones that are going to actually have more of a sense of how to build your company's marketing and sales. It can't be just, hey, I'm sending you an email.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of books, on July 29th, your new book, and this is not your company playbook, this is not your 50 pager, this is your big masterpiece custom fit, right? It's coming out July 29th.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit more about what readers could expect from this book.
Yeah. So, and it's kind of funny because everybody who reviewed it, they're like, yep, that's your voice. So it's definitely a straight talking guide for business owners and founders to really get their hands and head around the peopling part of their business. So it goes everything, so we have the sort of the tactical of really how to write a job description without, because let me step back here. You are a unique person. We're all told that. Our parents said it. Our teacher said it. Well, guess what? Your company should be treated as uniquely. So this is your job description. It's your dating app. It's your profile if you're going to one of the dating sites. Like, you really have to make sure that you're speaking volumes and the people can actually see who you are. So we have stuff like that. High pose, the high potential employee, looking beyond just the resume to really understand who's going to have the grit and tenacity. So we cover a lot of things, particularly even if you're a solopreneur thinking about making the jump to being an entrepreneur. And that's really going to be around how do you think about building your team and replicating yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's exciting. And I think that that's really important, that people really need to hear that message right now. The viewers and listeners, you're going to go ahead and find that pre-order link right down below. And what's the best way that people can work with you and that people can work with Boston Human Capital Partners?
Absolutely. So of course I'm on LinkedIn a lot. I love LinkedIn as a platform for myself. But also at bostonhcp.com is our website, and you can catch us at info@bostonhcp.com.
And again, those links as well are going to be right down below. Kate, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
You too.